introduce two other guests on the program. They started a startup called Unacademy. You perhaps have heard about this. For the uninitiated, it's an EdTech startup, and it's one that's back in the news. In fact, it was in the news not so long ago, I think an odd year or so ago. Again, funding and the backing it got from the biggies, the giants in India's entrepreneurial space. And today, again, for another round of funding. My great pleasure to have Roman Saini and Gaurav Munjal join me on the program. Thanks both so much. Wearing, of course, the Unacademy t-shirts. I remember that from last time as well. And big wide smiles. Gaurav, I don't want to ask the cliche journalist question on how does it feel, but I want to instead ask, what is the kind of blood, sweat and tears that has gone into bringing it this far?
So it's 10:30 and we are sitting in our Bangalore headquarters, and it's not unusual for us to sit so late. So usually we start our work day around 10:30 and are working till 10:30, 11 in the night, and that has been the routine since the last 3 days. And it's very hectic, and as they always say that funding is not something that should be celebrated because it's what comes after that. It's the big milestones, it's the growth that you have to do now.
Right. The tough work is just beginning. Yes. And you sound like journalists there, because here we are at work at 10:30, and so is the entire PR crew, which is all here. So you really, you could have do that as well, or we could be doing what you are, though. The idea, of course, hasn't struck us. But Roman Saini, your story, of course, fascinating. A lot has been said about it. Again, for those just tuning in, from a doctor to an IAS to an entrepreneur, and successful at that. When you look back, what's been the most rewarding aspect of the last few years at Unacademy?
So when I was a doctor, I used to see a lot of patients when I was an IAS officer. Obviously, I just served for 3-4 months and then I came here. So the most important fact is that we have influenced millions and millions of students. So that is one of the biggest thing which I like a lot of people who cannot afford high quality education, they are getting access through Unacademy. A lot of people are moving to Unacademy platform to learn, to get a new job, to basically crack an exam, to get a good college. And we are also basically helping a lot of educators to sustain themselves through online classes. They don't have to go out. There are a lot of issues which they face otherwise. Sure. And now through Unacademy, they are getting empowered and they are creating amazing content. So that has been the most fruitful part, both the learners as well as the educators, influencing them.
Okay, that's great. But, Gaurav, I do want to ask you that, the cynics will always say that, education is one area where we have just such a big challenge ahead. And when we talk about EdTech, can it really be a level playing field? Because can everyone get the access? Gaurav, how would you respond to that?
So I think we have been making videos since 2010, and we were making videos on our YouTube channel. And then when we started our own platform in 2015, then we were seeing views. But when Reliance Jio launched, then suddenly we saw that more and more learners coming online. And on YouTube also now, we see teachers on our own platform, we see teachers having 200,000, 300,000 followers. For example, there is this guy, Jatin Verma. He was an aspirant of IAS himself. He was preparing for the exams and he started making those lessons. And his lessons were watched almost 1 crore times across the country. And then these are people sitting in 2-tier cities, 3-tier cities, watching these lessons, who might not have access to such high quality teachers in their area. But they can quickly use the Unacademy learning app, watch these educators. And then and there are now more than 400,000 lessons on Unacademy available for free by thousands of teachers.
Okay. And tier 2, tier 3, good to know. So all those questions about Digital India, baby steps perhaps, but in the right direction. Roman, I do want to ask you, that there's also constantly the big issue about teachers, about, where are we going to get quality teachers from? In that regard, what's your experience been like?
Yeah, so see, Unacademy as a platform, I never thought that I'll be a teacher. So I ended up teaching a lot of people. I have taught millions of people. So Unacademy as a concept is creating new educators. Smart people earlier did not have any option to teach. They don't want to go to offline centers. They don't want to teach there. But now using Unacademy, even if you have 15 minutes, 30 minutes a day, you can start teaching. So we are creating new educators. Obviously, we are definitely facilitating the existing educators who have found out new avenues to generate impact and revenue for themselves. But in the same way, a lot of smart people who otherwise would not have taught, Thanks
see.
to Unacademy, they are coming online and they are sharing their knowledge very passionately with our learners.
Okay, there is hope. That is good to know.
Just to add to it.
Yeah, sorry, go
just
ahead.
to add to it that we always used to talk about platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter coming out of Silicon Valley, and now I think Unacademy is one platform that we can proudly say has come out of India, which will eventually change the education of the world. We have the likes of
Fantastic. I mean, made in India. And how, one last question before we let you go, and Gaurav, this one is for you, which is you've got support from so many giants in India's entrepreneurial space, and I've been told to ask you by some people I know on, what do you say to them to convince them? How do you get them on board?
I think one interesting statistics that I would like to give to budding entrepreneurs also, and Roman would agree with me on this. We never created a presentation for our investors up till 2.5 years, up till a very long point of time. Okay. We used to go take the marker and present our story on a whiteboard, and we would remember all the numbers from educators like Mudit, from educators like Khushbu.
That's quite something.
Chalk out the story. We would teach them the story.
Wow. And that's what you've sold. I think when you have the passion, it shows, and that's perhaps step one. But Roman Saini and Gaurav Munjar, many congratulations and thanks so much for your time.
Thanks
on
a lot.
The program.
Thank you.